If you're going to run a successful business, you're looking at fundamental drivers, trends, and adding value. The recent debt ceiling discussion is a classic case of the bouncing ball versus fundamental drivers. The debate in our country on the debt ceiling is he said this, she said that, he gave this insult, she gave that insult. They refused to negotiate, they broke, there were name calling. The conservative side did a revolt, the liberal side, is disappointed. We've got a really significant spending issue. Debt to GDP is over 100%. The present value of unfunded entitlements is in excess of $75 trillion. We're an aging society to where we don't have enough workers to pay all these bills. China is starting to talk to Brazil about denominating payments away from the dollar. And OPEC is starting to try to encourage people to denominate payments for oil away from the dollar. And maybe we ought to have a serious national discussion about how to manage this. And that did not seem to happen. That's the discussion we need to have. If you're a public official and you're in the middle of one of these standoffs, it would be the same as if, God forbid, you smoked, you drank, you did not take good care of yourself, and God forbid you had a health event. And the whole discussion is about what kinds of things the intensive care doctor did to help you while you were hanging on for dear life. It kind of misses the point. Are there lessons that can be learned on the way we managed ourselves leading up to this? And what I'm disappointed about, when you're a public official, you become the emergency room doctor, and that my whole job is to make sure you don't die, and let's stabilize you, and let's do whatever we can to stabilize you, and then let's go back to our daily lives, and thank goodness that's over. Whereas the real discussion should be, you know what? We ought to put our heads together and get with both parties together and get with the other side. But that probably takes the President of the United States, probably not any public official below the President has the power to push for that. And it probably takes the leadership of the other party to feel the same way. And let's get in a room and let's discuss what can be done. But then you have to have a very difficult conversation about revenues. So we had a bipartisan commission that got set up 10 years ago, Simpson-Bowles, where they actually had a real discussion about a framework for managing our debt growth, and it required some additional revenues and required some spending, and we had Republicans and Democrats, and they came to an agreement, and we never implemented it. You probably, in order to address this, you probably need, again, a bipartisan group where both parties agree they're going to be supportive of those recommendations. And they don't have to agree to them in advance, but they have to agree they're going to take it very seriously and try to come up with a compromise to deal with this issue. But that takes leadership at the highest level to make that kind of thing happen. The shame of this debt ceiling debate is there really wasn't a real discussion other than how to resolve this crisis. We have a fundamental problem that's not going away. And we will have a real crisis. A crisis is not, in my opinion, a crisis is not where one side says, I'm going to hold the line here and I'm going to threaten we're not going to pay our bills unless you act. That's a standoff, but that's a self-induced crisis, but that's being used as a negotiating tactic. That's not, let me tell you what a real crisis is. A real crisis is our leverage keeps going up and up and up, probably led by China and others who are not our friends, look for opportunities to denominate purchases away from the dollar, and all of a sudden we find we're having trouble selling our treasury securities. Our cost of debt is going up and up and up, and all of a sudden we realize a big part of our deficits now are interest expense, and we realize we're over leveraged and we've got a real problem. That is a crisis. That's a legitimate crisis. And my concern is if we don't address this issue soon, the next crises are going to be real crises. I'm not worried about as much about manufactured crises. I'm worried about real crises.
To learn more about structural drivers of the economy, take a look at the 5 Economic Drivers playlist on the Robert Stephen Kaplan YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the channel or follow Rob on social media to ensure that you never miss a new video release.